And from there, in just a blink again, I appear in my mom's path. She didn't have a car, and she had to walk to catch her bus. And it was a big neighborhood, and she had to cross, like, she had to go many blocks to go to her bus stop. And I just met her there. She was actually close to catch her bus when I just appeared on her path. And I'm like, again, looking at her from above,
From above,
like with
okay,
the maid, like floating above her. And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, that's mom." And Anders, the moment, the very second I said this, she stopped.
Oh.
And she's like, did not hesitate, did not, and it was that sense. She knew something was happening at home.
My name is Anders Bolling. You're listening to Mind the Shift, a podcast about a shifting world and shifting minds. Welcome. One of the ambitions of this podcast is to span the border between science and spirituality. I can't think of an experience more to the point of that endeavor than to physically die and yet retain a high level of consciousness and then come back to life to tell about it, especially if that person who is experiencing it is a scientist. I'm very happy to have as my guest today Ingrid Honkala, who drowned when she was very young, nearly 3 years old, and had a profound near-death experience. She came back to life with new gifts, a new perspective on life, and contact with beings of light who have guided her since. But this very unusual and life-changing event also meant that Ingrid, during her early years, sometimes struggled to fit into the mainstream. However, she chose a scientific career and became a successful marine biologist and oceanographer, working for the Colombian and the American navies and for NASA, among others. Born and raised in Bogota, Colombia, her scientific work has taken her to many countries, and she eventually settled down in the United States. Welcome to the show, Ingrid.
Thank you so much, Anders, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. Yes, that's great.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy that you're here with us today. You have an amazing story and you have amazing insights to tell, and you have done precisely that in your book, whose title is "A Brightly Guided Life: How a Scientist Learned to Hear Her Inner Wisdom." Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But as I understand, it wasn't until maybe 10 years ago or so that you realized that your unique experience was something that you ought to tell the world. How is that?
Oh, yes. Thank you first for having me here again. And it's an honor to be able to share with your audience. But yes, actually, throughout my life, I always knew and I felt it in myself, it was the sense that what I had experienced and the way I thought and the way I perceived life and who I was very different from most of the people around me. And that brought me to study other philosophies, religions, and experience the world in different ways, always going to just find the deep I, who I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always did it and kept it mainly for myself. Oh, the amazing thing is I kept the experiences for myself, but I always was, and we always are, or shine that light that we are, because that's actually the true path. It's like, are you shining the light that you are? And I always try to be, probably to put it in easy words, walk my talk.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a moment in my life where I felt the need, I felt that sense that it's time to now share it with words. Because up to that point in my life, it was like, how can I be the best Ingrid? How can I do good? How can I it was just the expression of me through my actions.
Mm.
But I always felt that I was so different from others, and my experience was so different that if I shared, people were going to reject me, or they were going to look weird. And especially once I became a scientist, and you kind of box yourself into, this is the way I should look, this is the way I should talk. So it's amazing how our perception just bring us to just put ourselves in, box ourselves.
Mm. Mm.
And I just
But
thought, no, if I,
did you try to tell about these experiences when you were working as a scientist?
very little. It was more like, mainly like, just like I said to you, just walking my talk, and
Mm.
just using my state of calming the mind, meditating, and just to find solutions and to be more effective and more efficient in the work I was doing. But I was not expressing my personal life to anyone or sharing it with anyone, not even with my husband. So
Oh.
which I can share that with you, because that was beautiful. And then there was the moment in my life when I started to just feel this deep desire of writing the book. And I
Mm.
always thought, I don't want to write any of these because it felt egotistic. I said, oh
Mm.
gosh, writing about yourself? No. But oh my God, Anders, when this push, when this energy was active in me, that I could not stop it. And there was a moment that I was driving my car, I was working, I was walking, I was at the supermarket, and now I had to have a little book with me, because a notebook, because I had to write. If I didn't write, I felt sick. If I didn't write, the thoughts or those ideas did not stop in my mind. It was like a waterfall
Mm.
wanting
Mm.
to just, or I would say like water that
Like
you're holding.
opening a
And
hatch and everything
yes,
just came out.
so I was writing, and there was that moment when I felt, this is actually one of the messages I got from the beings of light when I was little. They said to me, the experiences that you're having and the ones that you are going to have, so they were already showing me there's a lot more coming, are not for you to keep,
Mm.
are for you to give. And the right moment will come and you will know it. So I guess now this was the
Well,
moment.
yes, it's a treasure that you have been carrying around.
Yes, and I couldn't
It's an
hold it, and
experience.
this happened. And then, incredibly, I met a person, my best friend. She was working with the Navy, and we met, and it was amazing because she was very spiritual too. And so that connection started, and it's when the beings of light told me for the first time in all those years, because I always, since I was little, they said, wait. They said, do not talk about us with anyone because they're not going to understand.
Okay.
And after all those years, when I met her and we started to just become friends, they said to me, you can tell her everything. Oh, why? I feel
What a
this
relief.
sense of relief. Yeah. And I started to share with her and open up. And that was the door that also allowed me feeling safe. That's an important thing, so important. People don't imagine how feeling safe and listening, feeling that someone is listening to you and that you're able also to listen, the other person, is a treasure.
Yeah.
And then that door started to open up. And then during those days, I did a trip to Costa Rica, and
Mm-hmm.
I was in the ocean, and I was trapped by a wave. It was a big wave, and I went under the water, and this wave took me and started to just drop me to the bottom. And I went to the surface to try to breathe, and another wave came, and I was like rolled and tossed by like three waves until my husband saw me, other surfers saw me, and they pulled me out of the water. And the most incredible thing, Anders, is that I stood at the edge, now looking at the horizon, and I realized I did not feel absolutely any fear. no fear whatsoever.
Wow.
And standing at the edge, I realized, and I said the words, I am ready. I am ready to serve.
Yes. Okay.
And then I opened that door and started to share
To
with
share. Oh, that's wonderful.
anyone.
So yes, you have been mentioning the beings of light that are guiding you and all that. So maybe we should just go back to that pivotal event in the backyard of the house where you grew up in Bogota, Colombia. And you shared the story. What happened to you when you drowned there, and what did you experience?
Yes, that was, I would just say, the door that
Yeah.
opened all the rest of the experiences in my life. But I was close to 3 years old, as you mentioned, 2, 3 years old almost. And my parents, both of my parents used to work. They would leave us at the care of a maid. And this lady really didn't pay attention to us when my parents were not around. And then one day they left. My oldest sister was close to 4. And when she wasn't paying attention, she went back to her room and is like, let's go play in the patio. This patio was a tank, and we saw a ball, and my sister said, let's play catch across the tank. And the purpose of this tank is because back in the day in Colombia, we didn't have a washing machine. So this was there was a dual purpose: collecting water and hand washing clothes. So next to the tank, there was a flat surface for scrubbing. And this tank was pretty big. It was about 900 gallons of water. And okay, let's play. And we climbed the walls of the tank. And my sister sat on the flat surface, which she was a little bit safer. And when she threw the ball at me, she didn't apply enough force. She was little. And the ball fell on the water. It was floating there. And I thought, oh, I can grab it. I don't know anything. I don't know physics. I didn't know at the time. So I leaned forward, tried to grab it, and it rolled on the surface of the water. And I lost my balance and fell in the tank. And up to that point in my life, I had never been in a pool. We didn't have a bathtub. So imagine the sense of like, what is going on? My head is underwater and I don't know why I cannot breathe. This is the other thing. People think that because I was born in Colombia, I come from hot weather. But now that you also have been there, Bogota's pretty high up in the Andes. And very early in the morning, it can get quite chilly. So that
Pretty
water
cold.
in
Yeah.
that water in that tank was probably about, wow, very 5 degrees Celsius, which is about, I don't know, 30, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So the first, why I mentioned this, because the impact of the cold water was another thing that caught me by surprise. It was like, this water was frigid cold. So now I am like experiencing this, plus the fact that I cannot breathe. I went to the state of course, absolute anguish. How can I get out of this water? And that's important because it's just showing how in that desperate moment I'm fighting, I'm wanting to be out of this water. I don't know how to swim. And in just a flash, Anders, I went like that, from that state of complete horror to one of absolute peace. Just like, whoa, I didn't know what happened, but that felt great. And I always love to mention the different contrasts that this experience brought, because this tank was very dark. It was made entirely of cement. It had a roof on top. It was early, so it was dark. So the last thing I saw with my eyes open was the darkness of the space. And right there, the moment I went to that state of peace, a light came on from the bottom. And it was like if the light of a candle was lit and it was able to illuminate the whole watery surrounding. And now I'm like, oh, there's light. The other thing is I live in a house that was noisy, and right before I drowned, I could hear my heart pounding in my chest, really loud.
Mm.
And when I went to that moment of absolute peace, the noise was gone. There was
Oh,
no more
no more heartbeat.
sound, no more. And I was just like, oh, this feels so good. And it's when I experience what I call the silence behind the silence. Is when you go to that space of, it's not just the lack of noise, but absolute well-being, peace, serenity, calmness.
Mm.
And then after that, oh my God, I crave that for the rest of my life. And I look forward, I wanted it. And later in my life, I would hide in closets, chapels, wherever it was. I wanted to go back to that silence.
Mm.
But okay, I am in this amazing state of well-being, and then I started to see bubbles suspended in the water, and these bubbles were surrounded by light. And wow, this is cool. I started to just chase these bubbles, and it was by chasing those bubbles that I turned myself around, and I saw my body in the water.
Well,
And when I saw the body, it was like, that was incredible, because I wasn't afraid. It was the sense that I wasn't even like surprised. It was this, oh, that's me. That's my body. And it had something that I will never forget, is that the body had the eyes open,
mm-hmm.
staring. And I'm like, oh, and it was that sense of familiarity. It's hard to explain to you, but to me, it's like the sense of like, oh, this is normal.
Okay.
And then I just looked at the body, and this is the other big contrast. I was born as a very sick child, and I spent the first 3 years of my life feeling very unwell. And sometimes I always say that this brings me to know or think about purpose. Sometimes we can think, oh, how that child could just have been born so sick. But at that moment, it showed me the purpose of that, was showing me that moment of contrast. Because for the almost 3 years, I was always unwell. I didn't even know what to feel unwell in my human body was. I've been sick for almost 3 years. And I am experiencing this state of well-being.
Yeah.
That was so incredible that, of course, when I saw that body, I'm like, oh, I'm not going back there.
Of course not.
Forget it. So what I did was like turn around. So that was also amazing how I was able to have the clarity that I could make that decision. That no, I'm not going back there. Bye bye. And I turned around and I left the body behind. And at that moment is when I started to see flowers that were like blooming from nowhere.
Mm.
That was majestic. And I'm like, I'm having so much fun. And now I was picked by the flowers, and I was being carried. And this is amazing, because you will think, wow, even the sense of dimension disappear. I'm being picked by flowers. And then I'm being carried, and I put the analogy that is, the feeling was like going back to the womb. You're safe. There's nothing you have to do. I say you are being done. Nothing to expect, nothing. You just, this feels amazing. And when I am experiencing this in just a blast, I appear in the maid's room. And the lady was listening to soap operas in the radio. And I just looked at her and I said, oh, that's Maria. Nothing. There was nothing happened there. And from there, in just a blink again, I appeared in my mom's path. She didn't have a car, and she had to walk to catch her bus. And it was a big neighborhood, and she had to cross, like, she had to go many blocks to go to her bus stop. And I just met her there. She was actually close to catch her bus when I just appeared on her path. And I'm like, again, looking at her from above,
From above,
like with
okay,
the
yeah.
maid, like floating
Mm.
above her. And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, that's mom." And there's the moment, the very second I said this, she stopped.
Oh,
And she's like, did not hesitate, did not, and it was that sense she knew something was happening at home.
yeah.
With one of her babies, and she did not even think about anything else. She turned around and she started to run back home.
Okay. Hmm.
And that's the thing with my mom. She was very intuitive. And this is what I said to people too. It's not about intuition only, but listening to your intuition. And thankfully she always did. And she ran back home and I saw her, but I'm like, oh, that's mom. And I started to get distracted by the realization that wherever I put my mind, I could go. So there was a moment where I just saw a dog at the end of the street, and in the moment I felt the desire to be with the dog, I was there.
Mm.
Oh, that's fun. I turned my head and I saw like a green, a park at the end. Oh, I want to be there. I was there. Wow, now I was having fun playing the game of going places.
Yeah.
It was like the sense, the perception, or the sense I had of time and space as human was dissolved. It was completely different. And then again, in just a flash, it was something I wasn't controlling. All this was just happening. I appeared in a realm that was made of pure, bright, intense, shiny light. And wow. And this was the first time in my almost 3 years of life that I felt that I was home. It was the sense that, oh, it feels so good to be home. And although I didn't see anybody, I felt welcome. And again, that sense of familiarity came back. That's why it's home, because it's familiar. It feels good. It feels welcoming. It feels safe. And it's
were there
when
any kind of structures or beings, or was it just a realm of light that you were engulfed in a way?
Just light. I was engulfed in light. And this is incredible, like, because like I said to you, even with the flowers, there was not the need of expecting anything. So it was just freedom of thought, of expecting, of wanting. It was just and I am in this, engulfed in this light. And incredibly, up to that moment, although I saw my body suspended in the water, I didn't have the realization that I was not that persona. I was still identified with the persona, Ingrid. And it's at that moment when I said, I am not that. And I started to have this sense of dissolving, like just becoming part of the whole.
Yeah.
But I was still having that sense of self. But even that, there was a moment in which I even lost that sense of self, and I experienced what I call nothingness, what I call non-self. And when people ask me what nothing means, I said, the moment I tell you what is, it becomes something.
Yeah.
So it's not possible to say.
Not possible
I said,
to put in words.
No, I only can tell you what is not. And I said, in this state, there's no description, there's no meaning, there's no concept, there's no form, there's no sound, there's no shape, it's just pure presence. It's just pure consciousness. But people also get afraid about the nothing meaning, then saying that you went into nothingness. But at the same time, I said to them, no, it's the most liberating and amazing state of bliss, because it's like if you're in a box and now you're out of it. So it's just it's emptiness, but it's fullness. It was incredible.
So, but for the largest part of this experience, you had a sense of identity of a separate self, but then briefly you just merged with the what would you call it, the source, or
Yeah, I would just say That's what we understand as source, just pure presence,
Yeah.
consciousness, source,
Mm.
beingness. It's in the state of just being. And from there, I am in the experiencing this state of being when my mom arrived home. And this is the other amazing thing. We lived in a pretty big house, but she knew exactly where to go.
Mm.
She didn't waste time like, oh, what is happening? No, she went or calling or looking for the maid. No, she went directly to the patio. And she saw my sister still like leaning into the tank in this flat surface. She wanted to get me out, but she was almost 4. She was too little. And now it's like I see the purpose of her, because when she saw my mom, she was the one that told my mom, yes, Ingrid is there and I cannot get her. So my mom went into the tank, got me out, and she knew how to work with CPR, what to do. And she said that I was like a raggedy doll, that I didn't have any pulse, there was not any breathing, and my
You were
mom did.
clinically dead at that
I
point.
mean, yeah, we say clinically dead, then we will have to be in a hospital. But
Yeah, that's
according
true.
to, yes, to my mom, there was no pulse, there was no breathing.
Okay.
And she said I was like a raggedy doll. It was just my lips were blue, my body was white. I mean, she said that according to her, she said there was no life in this body. But she started to just do anything, and she was rubbing my body, she was doing anything she knew. But at that moment, Anders, I was so detached from this reality, so completely detached. I did not feel anything, nothing she was
But you
doing.
were somewhere else at this point.
Yes. So
The real you.
yes, exactly. There was no connection at all with what I always put the example of the ocean, the depthness, the deep part of the ocean. It's not feeling what the wave that is happening at the surface.
No.
Although we are a multidimensional being living all realities.
Yeah.
But at that moment, I was the deep ocean. I was immersed in the deep eye state of being. And then my
Did you feel
mom,
that you were sucked into the body and at some point that you were dragged back into this?
yeah, so this is what happened. I felt the sense that I had jumped from the tallest building in the world, like the sense that you're jumping from ground zero. And it was this this horrible thing, this vacuum inside, like feeling vacuum, and I was being pulled vacuum back, and I did not want it. It was like the sense of like, no. And I knew I was in the body when all the feeling of being, the lack of freedom, the coldness, the feeling I'm not feeling well, all of that was back. And
Back in the box.
and I was very unhappy. I wasn't happy to be back. Yeah, that's, and from there is like some hard times came for me and my family, and there's because I came with an awareness I didn't have before.
Yeah.
I will look at my parents and just have the sense that you're not just my parents. Because I felt the state of oneness. I said, you are my equal. I felt them as my equal. And I will look at myself and I'm like, I'm not that. That is not my name. And I will look at myself in the mirror and cry and said to my mom, you don't understand. This is not who I am.
No, this is just my body, my avatar. Can I ask you a couple of questions about what you're talking about now? Because when you had this experience, did you, I think it's a twofold question. You should never ask twofold questions, but I will do it anyway. Did you feel, firstly, can you remember, when you talk about this experience now, is it just as exactly as clear as it was once many years back when it happened, which is different from, for instance, a dream which fades away slowly? And secondly, did you feel in any way that you were a child when you were in that realm, or were you just a soul of any kind, feeling adult or just no age at all? Those are two questions.
I love these questions, and the first one is when, oh my God, my mind just went like, poop, like that. So your first question was if
Well, is
I,
this the remembrance of this
oh
experience?
yes, yes. Oh my God, my mind for a second went blank. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
but
maybe
but
you were back in the realm.
I think so. But yeah, the memories are so clear. And this is, I love that question because there's even things that I not just remember, but is, you know, how when you have a memory that you even have the sense of feeling it. It's not
Hmm.
just memory,
Mm.
but even the sense of, and I think that's why the contrast of the cold water, that's an important one, because
Mm.
feeling that cold water kept this experience so vivid.
Mm.
So to me, it's like is not anything similar to a dream. Is like something, anything that you could have experienced. And I would just say, you remember that party you had last week, how good you had it? Oh yes, of course, just like that. And
Mm.
look, when we went to the patio and there was that ball, and when I felt it in the water and I was touching the ball had letters on it,
Hmm.
engraved, and it had characters painted next to each letter like the alphabet. I can even feel the texture of the ball.
Okay.
I can even remember the color. When I went to the maid's room, I can even remember the soap opera she was listening in the radio. So it's that clear,
Mm.
that
And the
detailed.
feeling of being timeless and completely calm and in complete silence when you were in that other realm. You
Yes,
can
to the
all,
point, like I said to you, I crave that for the rest of my life. So what
yes, you
happened with
said
this
that. Yes. Mm.
experience is that it didn't end there.
Mm.
It kept going. When I came back and I look at my body, I'm like, I'm not this child.
Mm. Mm.
So this wasn't like something you wake up from a dream and you say, oh, this is a dream, and you forget. It's never ended.
It's
After
changed your
that,
life forever. And this happened, I mean,
forever.
when you were only not even 3 years old. So that must have completely impacted your upbringing, your early years.
Yes,
And
completely. And the way I interacted with other people and the way I saw the world. And your other question, and I'm still just,
well, did you experience that? Well, I guess the answer is no, because the question was, did you feel that you were a child when you entered this realm?
yeah, that's an incredible question, because there was not sense of being any
Age?
age.
Yeah.
There was no sense of, at the beginning, this is really good, because at the beginning when I saw my body in the water, I could even say to you that it was the sense of the childlike mind, like, oh,
Hmm.
this is like that, this, wow, look at the bubbles and look at this and look. But as the experience went through, that thing, that aspect of the mind, like I even said, when I entered the realm of the light, I was still having a sense of self. The more that mind like started to dissolve, the less I felt I am this, I am that,
Mm.
I am Ingrid, I am a girl or whatever it is. I see, there was, the less I identify with any of that, until I had the sense of, that's why I call it nothingness.
Mm.
There was not anything that I would just say, I was this, I was that. And but again, it was, and I kept it for the rest of my life. It was this sense, that's why I completely lost the fear of death, because it was the sense of, I am an eternal being. That I
Mm.
knew. It's like it was that, I, I didn't even know how to explain it, but it was that I always have been. And when I
Yeah.
came back, and I, like I said to you, that imagine the shock, because I am now in back in the body. I'm looking at myself, I'm looking at other people, I'm looking at other children, Anders, and I
Mm.
will look at them and I'll be like, I couldn't relate,
No.
because I had the same, what is happening to these
Yeah. Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't know anything.
They don't know anything. They just think that they are their bodies, and yeah, and
And
they've
I
only
would
been
just
here on Earth
look
for a
and,
few years.
Yes, and from very little, I didn't want to relate with people my age, with children. My mom would take me with her to her meetings with friends, whatever, all people that of course were older for my age, and I would sit there and cross my leg. And that was amazing, because being so small, that after that 3 4 5, and I could understand with clarity the sufferings of these people, their pains, and how could I, if I was just a little child that supposedly
Wow.
never went through these experiences,
Mm.
supposedly, because now I had the knowing that, oh, I understand you because I have been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was incredible. I came back, like you also mentioned, with abilities of knowing how to read, write, resolve mathematical problems, put together complex puzzles. So when I went to school and I had all these abilities, to me was the sense, I don't need to learn these things, I'm just remembering.
Yes. Yes.
So it's just, I would just say it's like we become activated.
Yeah. 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 I can relate to that. I mean, it resonates with me when you say that. These beings of light that you talk a lot about, you didn't meet them, quote unquote, when you were having this experience, but you met them afterwards. So did they come to you when you had come back to this physical world?
Yes, when I was in that realm of the light, I like I mentioned to you, I didn't see anyone, but
No,
I felt the sense of there was presence there.
because it was presence. Yeah.
And later in my life, when I started to communicate and see the beings of light and all that, it was like, oh, it was the sense that that presence was there.
Mm.
But before we go more into the beings of light, there was a moment in my life, because I always mention this, Anders. I always say, it's like, for me, after my near-death experience, the door never closed.
Mm.
And then not long ago, the beings of light said to me, of course the door never closed, because there is no door.
That's beautiful.
That's amazing. So we are the ones, due to
Yeah.
conditioning, not just us, but our parents, our teachers, our education, culture system,
Yeah.
that door or that window, we
Not
close
least
it.
religion, actually. Traditional religion
Everything.
tells you that God is
Exactly.
there and you are here, and there's a separation,
As
which
there's
is
a separation. Look, at 9 years old, I went to church because I was so in love with God, so in love.
yeah.
Because I knew also I was raised as Catholic. After that, that conditioning started to try to come into my life. But my mom said, I never met any child that was more rebellious than you. I could not be conditioned on this. I could not.
No.
So I would just went to church and I said, you don't understand. Your fear is separating you from God.
Mm.
And he got so mad at me. Said, those are
I
the
guess
words
I,
of the
gue- I guess
devil.
you could have told the Pope that. I mean, I don't think the Pope has had a near death experience.
And I was
He
just
needs
telling
one.
them, what is separating you from God, from the truth, is your fear.
Yeah.
Oh, he said, you go pray. You don't know what you're saying. That's the words of the devil. Because it was all the teaching of fear God. And to me, I experienced God.
Mm.
I didn't know the word God. I didn't even know the word love. At 3 years old, what is love? You don't know that. But
No,
later
you
in
can
my
just
life,
feel it. Yeah.
when I learned the concept, I'm like, oh, I know. I said to people, I love to bring the analogy of the orange juice with religion, with all this, with the idea of God. It's like, you can even have a master degree in how an orange look, how the physiology, the biology, how to prepare the juice, how to make it. Oh, you're an expert in that. But if you never drink the juice, you don't know it. So it's when I said you could not have all those concepts,
Mm.
but the day you drink the orange juice, now you really know it and you will never
Yeah. Yeah.
forget it. That's what happened. That's why
That's
also
beautiful.
answering your question, if that near-death experience felt like a dream, no, it
No.
felt like the real deal. It
The
felt
real
like
deal.
not just knowing. the concept of the orange, it was drinking it.
Yeah. Yes, I've heard other people explaining their NDEs as if they experienced a reality that was much more real, tens of times much more real than this one. This is the dream, and that is the reality. I've heard. Like,
Yes, yes, and it became more clear to me after my near death when like as the beings of light said, yeah, of course the door never, there's no door of, yeah.
mm,
After that, I kept having what we call out of body experiences,
yeah, okay,
and I was going or experiencing that realm of the light over and over, and I will go through these stages in which I experience changes in color, in frequencies, in movements, in sounds that I have never experienced as a human.
mm,
And it will bring me to that realm of the light. And it was in these journeys that I started to now see with clarity what I call beings of light.
okay,
And the reason why I call beings of light is because they were shining in bright light. I was a child, so with the mind that I had, that's what I saw. And they started to appear to me in one of these journeys. I was surrounded by starlight figures that were shining in all different colors, like say like you're looking at the universe at night, like at the sky, and you see stars that go forever.
yeah,
But in the way I saw it, it wasn't a dark space, it was light. And I saw light that was shining, they were shining in colors all over the place to the
mm,
infinite. And in one of these journeys, one of them was shining in gold, pure gold.
wow,
And it approached me, came close, and it shaped itself into a human form, kind of showing me, I am like you.
mm, yes,
And I'm like, and when it touched me, I said, you are a being of light. And in that occasion, I woke up. And after that, I just wanted to go asleep. That's all I wanted to do. And of course now look at the amazing part of what balance is. Because if I could not be the child that is left forever. I would have been in a state of imbalance. I came as human. I was here to live this experience. So now is okay. That balance needed to happen. And one day I'm just taking a shower, relaxing there. So look at how amazing all the symbology of life, like what is to just relax, take a shower, you're in a state of openness. That's meditation. And when
mm,
I'm doing there naturally, a blue bright light, intense, was shining in the bathroom. And I'm like, wow, now the beings of light are here.
mm-hmm,
And it's when I started to see them with my human eyes here.
okay.
And then after that, they were appearing everywhere, and I could see them around animals, people
Could you
everywhere. And
communicate with them, and did they give you messages that you
at,
could
at the
understand?
beginning, no. At the beginning, it was just the presence. Oh, and being with them and feeling their presence. At that moment, it was all I needed.
Yeah,
And that was so incredible, Andres, that I started to heal. Because up to that point, after the near death experience, I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be touched. I was rebellious. I was angry. I was sicker than before due to the drowning. It was terrible.
mm,
And I started to heal. I started to feel better. I wanted to communicate more with my parents, play with my sisters. It was, oh, this sense, there was so much love, so much, the sense of presence, of, ah, I just feel it safe and embrace that I just started to be in the state of more joy.
mm,
And then it was a day, but because I was still very detached from my name, because although I was feeling better, there was a day that I threw a big tantrum. Well, many days I did, but this day was special because they were calling me Ingrid. Ingrid, and there was moments that it would really bother me.
mm,
And then I was like, don't call me like that. And they were calling me to eat dinner, and the lady was Ingrid, Ingrid. I'm like, oh. So finally she came, and she's like, Ingrid, don't you hear? We're calling you to eat dinner. And I'm like, do not call me like that. That is not my name.
Mm.
And she's like, okay, so how should we call you? What is your name? And I said, I do not need one. Of course, she's like, oh, we're tired of your tantrums. They sent me to
Yes.
bed that
Crazy,
night.
childish plays. Yeah.
And then that was the night where the beings of light started to talk with me. And then is when I heard the voice. It wasn't just seeing. Oh, this is the other thing I could do. I could smell. If
Mm-hmm.
they were around, the smell would be like roses, like flowers. It was like, oh, it
Wow.
was incredible. So at that moment, I heard the voice that says, like almost like in a whisper, like he was telling me a secret. It's going to take time for them to understand that names are not needed in the
Mm.
realm of the
Mm.
light.
Mm.
So for me, it was like, it was liberating actually, because it was the feeling of like, I understand now why I do not need a name.
Mm. Mm.
It
And could
was
you
that.
eventually feel comfortable in the notion that you actually, although you were a child, knew more than the adults, and that you had closer contact with the real world than the adults? Could you feel a comfort in that eventually, and
when
feel
when
at,
I when I when I was little, I was an observer.
yeah.
To the point that later in life I asked the being, so like, what is it that I am observing? Because I observe more than talk. I didn't talk much. I observed. And they answered to me something beautiful. They say life through your own personal experience.
Mm. Mm.
And that's when the sense I have, and later in my life, that, oh, we are observing and we are providing feedback to the universe.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, but it wasn't easy because I wasn't understood, and it was hard to communicate. And at school, especially in school, I was bullied when I tried to express to the teachers, or I was very intelligent human, like I could, like I said to you, I could take any concept. And this is the other thing. And my mom, who was a teacher, this was amazing, because children only at certain age, I don't remember if it's 7 or 8 or even later, they develop the abstract mind.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm.
And the possibility to understand concepts and
Yeah.
mathematics and puzzles. i
Hypothetical
i
situations.
can I came back with that.
Okay.
So for me, I mean, my highest scores in all the tests and everything was the part that I could. And that's been amazing in my career as a scientist, because I could see numbers, I could see patterns, I could
Mm.
see
Mm.
results, I could work with huge matrices and see
Mm.
how things were working behind the scenes. So I already came with that. But incredibly, the beings of light said something to me, and they said, although they asked me when I was very young, do not share about us because they're not going to understand.
No.
And I tried, and they didn't. And they thought, like when you're a child, oh, you're dreaming, you're making a story, it's not
Mm.
happening,
Mm. But
whatever.
your mother at some point did acknowledge what you were experiencing, didn't she?
Yes, and that's what the beings of light said. People will be put in your path.
Mm.
And my mom was one of that people, that you will find these people in your path. And
Yeah.
I was now in a school, kindergarten, and I was doing drawings. And all my drawings, because the beings of light told me that I shouldn't. It was like, don't do it. No, it's just like they don't understand you. You will waste your time.
Mm.
And then because I was told not to say anything, I have to express myself somehow, and I started to paint beings of light everywhere.
Yeah. Of
And
course.
it's when we also discovered, I didn't know up to that point, I could see auras too, but I thought everybody could. I mean,
Yeah.
how do I know? And then now I'm painting auras everywhere, with around everything. I'm painting beams of light everywhere. And the teacher was really curious, like, okay, what is going on here? I guess you love the sun. These are the sun, the stars. And I said, No, those are my friends, the beings of light. It's when like the teacher like, and I was already in the eyes of these people. I was strange because I was very quiet. I would be in a corner. I was just observing. And then my mom, they call my parents, my mom, my dad couldn't come. My mom came to school, and when she's showing all the drawings, when she's showing all these things to my mom, I just was so desperate for someone to believe me that I turned to my mom and I said, Mom, because they're showing the aura. So these are the colors that we wear, and these are my friends, the beings of light. And my mom made me this face, like pretty much like, she was a teacher too. She didn't want me to be in trouble. She just looked at me with those mom killing us, like, be silent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was so sad. I thought, no, I mean, this is it. I'm alone in this world. And then on the way home is that my mom revealed to me that she also could see things that others couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what is that you see? So she said that she could see spirits. I didn't know what that was. And later in life was when I was 6 years old, I started to see also what we call spirits, and it's when I said to my mom, no, Mom, the spirits and the beings of light are not the same. Because the spirit thing caused me fear.
Yeah.
And with the beings of light, I was a complete state of peace.
Okay.
So my mom is when she asked, what is it that you see? Because she thought we were seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
And when I describe it really clear, she's like, she started to cry and she said, I think that you see angels.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the Catholic religion. Yeah. Yes. And she's like, but it's when I told her, I don't know, Mom, because they don't have wings. Like in the pictures. And she's like, but it has to be your guardian angels. And then it was when I went and asked the beings of light. First I was like, what is with these spirits? Because this is strange. They produce me fear. And so when I thought the answer was going to be, oh, they're different, whatever. And it's when they said to me, that thing that you call spirits, you as, in essence, we're all the same.
Yeah.
The only difference is the awareness you have, the consciousness, the awareness you have about who you truly are. Oh, wow, what? And after that, they said, my mom says that you are angels. Is that what you are? And the answer was beautiful because they say you can call us whatever you want. Yeah. The universe manifests to us in the way we can understand it. And that's how compassionate the universe is. It's like, oh, okay.
Which actually leads me to a question that I was going to ask you before. Time flies here. I think we have to fast forward a little bit to your experiences. Anyway, I was going to ask about this NDE because we've had other guests on the podcast, and I've heard many NDE stories also in other contexts. We had Eben Alexander, for instance. I think you know him here on the podcast, and it seems that many things coincide when people have had near-death experiences, like, for instance, the spiritual transformation within these people, of course, and the feeling that the realms that people reach are more real than this reality, and so on, as we have been mentioning here. But there are also, it seems like every NDE is unique, so there are differences in what people experience. Do you think, in your view, do you think that the non-physical realm that we reach when we leave our body is quote unquote bespoke for our particular soul's journey? I mean, tailored for each and every individual. Do you think that that's the case?
Yes, and that's when the beings of light get me the answer when I say, what is that I am observing? They say, life from your own personal experience.
Oh, yeah.
And that doesn't apply just to this physical realm. This applies to all realms. So this is amazing, because I said to people, and when the beings of light said to me, we're all the same. All depends how aware you are about who you truly are. Because later when I started to learn about ascended masters and all that, I asked the same question to them, like, what makes you different? Is there a hierarchy? And they said, no, it's only experience and awareness. The more aware you are about who you truly are, the more evolved you are. And then I said to people, and what I learned through time, and the fact that you die in your physical, we call it death. Now I know that there's no death, but
we just
let's
leave
call
time.
exactly just leaving the biological part of yourself, the death of your physical body doesn't mean that you awaken. It's a process. So once you're in the non-physical realm, if you're still not awakened, you're not awakened. You continue your process of awakening. And this is amazing. I'm going to share with you quick an experience I had. There was a time where I went to sleep at night. I was deep sound asleep, and I was awakened by the sound of a bell. Cling, cling, cling. I woke up. I'm like, that cling, cling, cling. I woke up again. I'm like, what? How can I wake up if I was awake? What is going on?
Oh, yeah. 2 levels.
Cling, cling, cling. I woke up again.
Okay.
I'm like, huh? And this bell sounded like about 5 times. And before I even had any concept that there was something called Ingrid. So, and again, going to my explanations as an oceanographer with the column of water, again, it's like I woke up at the depthness at the bottom of the ocean, where the ocean doesn't have any sense, even though everything is being influenced. The depthness of the ocean is not perceiving the wave at the surface.
No.
So same thing, I woke up in the depthness of Ingrid. So there was no concept of persona, career, name, dreams, none of that. It was the pure presence of myself. And I just started to wake up at all these levels until at the fifth or sixth, like the fifth bell, I had that idea. There's something called Ingrid.
Yeah. Yes, I can relate to that. I've had similar experiences, not 5 or 6 levels, but and no bells. But I think often when I wake up these days, I try to awaken spiritually the best way I can, and I try to meditate every morning and so on. So nowadays, when I sleep, I often dream very deeply, and when I wake up, I don't know that I'm under. But it's not that I'm confused or anything. It just takes a few minutes before I remember. Oh yes, this is this world that I'm in now, and I'm supposed to do this and that.
Yes, before you put your gloves on.
Exactly, it's a state of a blissful state actually, which is very nice. But I'm really annoyed sometimes because I can't remember my dreams, and I just remember that they were so fascinating and so good. So I just want to remember them first. But well, I guess that's pretty trivial.
But that's when I realized we are multidimensional beings, and we are actually at this moment experiencing all levels of being. And then with awareness, with meditation, with work, we can, like you're experiencing now, become more aware of our other states of being. And in my near death and during my out of body experiences and many other experiences I have had, because I had another short near death experience. I had a motorcycle accident and other sicknesses and stuff. I've been able to experience the non-physical realm state and realize that our mind, our emotions continue with us. That's why we have to purify ourselves here and now. And I said to people, this experience as a human is incredible because it offers so much contrast. Like even the symbols of, even in my near-death experience, the darkness, the light, the sound, the no sound, the sickness, the wellness, all that is offering in this contrast for us to, oh, being able to observe what we can observe,
Mm.
what we cannot see, what we cannot sense, what we cannot feel. So I said to people, this is incredible. There was a moment in my life, Anders, when I was in the I would just say worst of the times of suffering for whatever reasons. And it's when I asked the being, so like, what am I doing here? You're not going to believe the answer, because I am feeling that I am suffering. And I'm
Yeah.
saying, what I am doing here? And they said to me, to experience pure joy. How can
Oh,
you tell me that?
well, without that contrast, you would never know what pure joy is, I guess.
Exactly, exactly. So but it's also when I make the decision, oh, what if I start living my life with presence?
Yes.
What if, and it's when they gave me this teaching, they said to me, look, if you think about it, absolutely everything, every bird, every tree, the wind that you breathe, every cell in your body is at the state of present.
Mm, mm,
Now, if your cell was thinking about tomorrow, guess what? You disintegrate. Oh,
yes.
yes,
Yeah.
everything is working in the now. The
Exactly.
only thing that is not there is your mind.
Hmm. The
And
ego
the
mind.
more you disalign from the present,
Mm,
from the now, the more you disalign, the more you suffer, because
mm.
you're living a life of expectations. You're living a
Yes.
life of like in disalignment with what is happening now, with what is,
Yeah.
and you want something else, or you're trapped in your past memories. This is the other beautiful thing they said to me. They say, Ingrid, you think that you are thinking, that all the time you're thinking? And I said, of course. My mind is full of thought. I'm thinking all. And they said, no, humans are not really, really, truly using the gift of thinking for what it is. And I said,
Mm,
wow. And they said, what you are, people, the 90 something percent of people, what they're doing is remembering,
yeah.
trapped in their own memories, all thoughts.
Old thoughts. Yes. It's a program running
It's a
just
program
automatically.
running. So they said, the more you practice presence, the
Mm,
more you practice, it's amazing how we take it for granted that our five senses were given as a portal to awareness.
mm,
So we do walking meditation, do the dishes, take a shower, brush our teeth
mm,
in
mm.
presence, use that sense perception, we can start connecting with the now.
Yeah.
And the more connected is when they say, is when you just open that connection. And now you're actually connected with the true thinking, the
Mm,
creative
mm,
thinking of the universe.
mm.
That gift of thinking becomes real. And
And you can even appreciate the pain that you experience, because it's part of the whole experience. And I think it's Eckhart Tolle who has described the difference between suffering and pain. Pain will happen once in a while. Occasionally, you will feel pain, but then it ends, because, as you say, we only have the present moment. So when it's over, and then you don't have to think about that pain anymore. But suffering is when people get stuck in that pain. They just keep remembering the pain that they had from a loss of a loved one, or a divorce, or whatever,
yeah,
an accident. That's suffering. So we
you
never need to
yeah,
suffer, really.
yeah, I call it the cul-de-sac of suffering.
The cul-de-sac of suffering. Yeah, that's good.
I this is the other thing. When I talk to people about free will,
Yeah.
I said, people think they have free will because they buy their clothing, their food, they choose their career. And I said, yeah, I mean,
Mm,
you have your choice there, but that's not free will. I said to people, that's not free will, because the food you eat, the clothes you wear, the career you chose, where you live is conditioned by your culture, by
mm,
your parents, by your education, by your country, by, oh my God, your ancestors. Otherwise, you will eat something else, wear something else, maybe didn't even go college. So that's not free will. I said, just going what you were saying, to me, free will is when you decide to choose or pick that path of suffering. Now you stuck there, and the free will comes when you stop and say, I'm not. going to stay there anymore. I'm picking the path of clarity,
Yeah.
the path of the light. To me, true free will is make that decision of, I want to see this with clarity.
Mm.
And to me, the true prayer is not like, oh, how I can change this, how I can change that. To me, the true prayer, the way I pray, I say, God, help me see, because I cannot see.
Mm. That's a good
Give
prayer.
me clarity. What is this for? The moment we ask that question, we come out of that cul-de-sac of suffering, because I leave the story behind. I don't identify with the story anymore. And now I am in the path of looking for a purpose. What is this for? What is this teaching me? I want clarity. Wow, now you're evolving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People think, or have they think that the concept of choosing joy and choosing love, which we actually can do, they think that it's irresponsible and naive. But it's difficult to convey that to people who aren't really awakened, because, I mean, of course, it sounds silly. I can choose to be joyful. Oh, you can't. If something bad has happened to you, of course you can't choose to be. But we can actually do that. We can choose that path, as you say. And that's really
Yes,
important to
we
realize.
can, and incredibly is at every second of our life.
Yeah.
Our life can be new at every single moment. I can just right now make that decision of like, but it also depends what you picture as joy.
Mm-hmm.
If your joy is in receiving something from outside, in wanting to change your reality, in going to a party, in going to a trip, then your joy is conditioned. You're
Yes,
expecting
that's,
something.
yeah, of course, yeah, that's true. I mean, joyfulness, true joyfulness, like true unconditional love, comes from inside, of course. Then it doesn't have anything to do what's happening on the outside, I guess. It's
Exactly.
just,
It
I mean, it
comes
can happen
from, yeah.
anything, and you just feel blissful or joyful, or just neutral.
Yes, it's a sense
What
of
is
inner
happening?
peace, inner
Yeah.
calmness. That's what I say to people. You want to think about doing any practice whatsoever, go for calming your mind.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
true state of joy is the freedom of not having to expect, not having to do, not having to. You know, it's amazing when I asked the beings of light one time after I had that big awakening 10 years ago. That's another story, but I had this big awakening, and I was still working with the organizations, and it's when I'm there surrounded by scientists and everything, and I said to the beings of light, what can I do or say to these people? Because if I am experiencing joy, I want them to experience that. It didn't mean, like it said, that my outer reality changed. It was still the same thing, same problems. No, it was my state of being.
Yes.
I felt this sense of liberation. And then
Of course.
when I said to them, what can I do or say? The answer was amazing, because they said to me, do or say nothing. They said, the light of your awareness is all they need. So is that, Anders? It's not about now what can I, and get anxious about it and expect something. No, just be. If you had that awakening, be that. Be that light, be that silence, be that calmness, be that compassion, joy. Oh, just be that. And they said, and later the doing and the saying will come from being. And that's what it means to walk your talk.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And nowadays, you know what, even I have learned so many mantras and so many prayers and stuff throughout my life. I would just say that today my most important mantra is nothing complicated, nothing long, nothing. It's just, I go to the store, I go to the bank, I'm with you, and I say, how are you doing today?
Yeah.
With
That's
true
wonderful.
feeling, with coming from the heart. Oh, the person feel it. You can save a life with that.
Yes. Yeah. Because the person feels seen. Somebody sees that person. I
Yes.
mean, you just have to think of how you felt, how you react yourself when somebody sees you, when somebody really truly sees you and listens to you. It's really, like you say, life-saving or soothing. Anyway, that's beautiful.
Yes,
So
yes.
during your career now, you have, which we have maybe not time to delve very deeply into all that you have experienced and all your travels and all what you did here, but you became a scientist, a marine biologist, and an oceanographer. And how did these unusual spiritual insights and gifts, and also your contact with the beings of light, help you during this long career in the military, in the navy, and in scientific bodies, different kinds?
It's been incredible, because just starting with that question, people ask me, how could you become a marine scientist if you drown?
Yes,
And I said that you
that's a
should
good question, actually.
and I said you should be so fearful of water, and I said
Yeah,
no, actually the opposite. And this is again when that choice of leaving the cul-de-sac of suffering happened,
yeah,
because for me I never stayed at the level of the experience. To me, I went beyond. For me, it was like, because drowning brought me to see the light,
yeah.
so I never stayed in the drowning.
Mm.
That for me was like, it brought me to see the depthness. And look at the parallel. Now I wanted to know the depthness of everything. I became a scuba diver. I wanted to just, I guess that was the sense of like, I want to know the depthness of everything, how deep is the ocean of life. And yeah, I decided to actually to become a scientist since I was very, very little. I was 4 years old. My parents took me to see the ocean, and was mesmerized. And I said to my mom, someday I'm going to know what is there. And then when I was 5, I told my dad, I'm going to be a marine scientist. Okay, that's what you want to do. And that was all I
At five
wanted.
years. Mm.
Yes. And then that was, that was very needed. Actually, it's like I started to, this is the other thing, I started to have visions of the future since I was a little
Mm.
child. And then
Your future or the general future of mankind?
sometimes I could see things that were going to happen in general, but it was mostly my own experience, my life. Later in life, I started to see other things that were, and now it's been opening more. But yeah, at that point, later I realized how very needed it was that I became a scientist, actually, because there was a moment where by the age of 19, I had already, I imagine at 9 years old, I was already reading books like the Bhagavad Gita,
Oh,
Viveka Shuddhamani, which is the book of discernment, Aparakshanavati, that is book of self-realization. I started to practice a transcendental meditation when I was 14, studying Vedanta when I was around 14, 15. I mean, by 19, I was like embedded in all this spirituality at a level that I wasn't even walking in this world.
mm.
And what happened with science and with college and the people I met there, I needed to ground.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. And this is also the whole symbology that brings me to know with clarity that the path of awakening is not just become a self-realized being, but becoming a self-actualized being. Once you're awakened, what do you do with that? So to me, it was like, wow, all this time brought me to that realization, how I can merge both my spirituality and my humanity.
Yeah.
And then this was great. I'm becoming a scientist and meeting people and having a boyfriend at that time, where I started to put my feet in the ground and experiencing also the sufferings of life. And through all these sufferings, I became more compassionate, more empathic, more kind. Because there was a moment, I have to tell you, being young, having all this awareness, I would look at others and think, are you stupid?
Mm.
So I became arrogant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't
Mm.
have that empathy because,
Spiritual arrogance. That's the worst kind.
yes, yes, because of course to me it was like, what is happening to these people? But thankfully, grounding
Mm.
and experiencing many things that were not nice,
Mm.
many sufferings, not that we have to, but it was needed. I know it was needed. So now I'm grateful with all of it, because it was 20 years of many sufferings. I told you before, I live in a war zone. I experienced the war. I was almost raped and murdered. There's many things that happened through my life after that, abusive relationships, so many things that, wow, nowadays I can say, thanks to all of that, I can understand why we forget, why we not in tune with who we truly are. Why is the path? What do we need to wake up? How patient and how compassionate we need to be with other people, with our own selves.
Mm. But do you
So
think the point of being here in the first place is that we are supposed to experience polarity and these contrasts in order for us to grow spiritually and to understand what real, true, unconditional love and joy is? Is that the point as you see it,
yes. You know what? It's funny because
I mean,
this
we are
is
here
good.
after all. We are here, all here on
We
this
we
earth.
we are
There must be
here,
some point.
yes. And this is going to sound funny, but weird. But I said, life is not meant to make us happy.
Mm,
Who said that?
mm,
Life is meant to challenge us so
mm,
we can find that happiness within ourselves.
yeah.
So all these challenge, all these things bring us to stop looking out and look within. Look,
Yeah.
there was a moment one day, this is great. My husband came home and he had this back pain. Oh, my back hurts so bad. I'm going to go get a massage. And it's when I got this whisper from the being so light, and says he's not going to heal. I'm like, what? That's mean? And they said, no, because what he's trying to solve is a result. So they show me this analogy of an equation. They said, look, 1 + 1 = 2. 2 is a result. There's nothing you can do with the result. It's already a result. So they say you can waste all your energy. You can put all yourself in it. There's nothing going to happen. You have to go within. So once you go within and you change the equation from within, you calm your mind. You learn how to be at peace, be tranquil, be in the present, be in the now. Now the answers come. And that's when you become the presence, the space is when you create a new reality. You're a creator.
Mm-hmm.
And then now they show me, look what happened. 2 is a magic thing. 1 + 2, you create a new reality.
Yeah.
3. See.
Well, maybe that's how I'm gonna fix my hip, which has started to hurt.
Yes.
It might be. They say it could be arthritis. I don't know. But I've been thinking that the way that you're describing it now, that I should perhaps try to focus a little bit more inside and ask my beautiful body to try and heal itself the best it can. Maybe it can't heal the arthritis, but I can always try that way.
Yes, exactly. Just calm your mind and don't, the beings of light said to me always, do not expect.
No expectation
Because,
of the outcome.
yeah, because the mind is tricky.
Yeah.
So now it's like you have a train with 2 heads. One head is saying I'm healing, the other one is not true. See, so where is it going to go? So is when people say to me, oh, how can I communicate with beings of light or whatever it is by calming my mind? I said, do not expect that. That's just a result that gets
No, you can
created, but
yeah.
just be at peace with yourself, and the gratification from that is better than anything else.
Yeah. But you have to experience that a couple of times first. But when you have, you realize that that's the way to go. You have to start doing that. And I think maybe the thing is to start just meditating or something, and then you will realize, slowly realize that you feel better, just generally feel better after doing that.
Exactly.
Then, that's evidence enough, I think.
Yes, when people talk to me about science and spirituality, how can they and I said, how can they be together? And I said, because the separation is in the mind.
Yeah,
and I said, if you think about it, spirituality is not a belief. Spirituality is not believing anything.
Mm.
Actually, it's the opposite.
Mm.
Spirituality is science because it's experiential.
Yeah.
Again, is drinking the orange juice. Oh,
Yes.
you want to know kindness? Be kind.
Uh-huh.
Oh, now
Yeah.
you know what that is. You want to you want to see peace? Be at peace with yourself.
Mm.
Now you know what that is, and you create that peace. Again, you create a new reality.
It's
You
empirical.
yes, it's amazing. The beings of light show me this room as an analogy, for example, and they said, "What is something in the room that never, ever, ever, ever changes?
Mm.
The space in the
There's
room
space. Yes. That's good.
is ever present.
Mm.
Is That's why it's omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient is always there.
Mhm.
What always changes? The furniture. So it's your decision. What do you want to identify with? The furniture or the space?
Yeah.
When you identify with the furniture, you suffer because it can be moved, it can be tossed, it
Mm.
changes. But when you identify
Functions.
yourself with what you truly are, that's the spirit. What is spirituality? Go back and be that present. Go back and be your
Mm.
true self, your authentic self.
Mm.
When you identify with the space, which at the beginning is you're working it, you okay,
Mm.
but you are it.
Mm.
And when you start like going back to the root of what you are, presence, which is what I experience in my near-death experience, that I call nothingness,
Yeah.
is the space.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
look, the space can hold, the space holds it all.
Mm.
That's why it's the emptiness that is actually fullness. And that's when you become the creator of your life.
So the point of being here is to experience contrast and polarity, but when we realize that that is the point of it and we feel joyful or blissful about it, then we are getting closer to realizing that we are not just our physical beings, and we are actually evolving. And I mean, to take it far, you might say that at one point we might not even need to incarnate anymore. We might stay in that other realm, and well, that's, I don't know if we are close to that point. But my question is, do you think that we are now living in a time, because I one of the basic foundations of this podcast is that we are living in shifting times because the world is integrating for the first time ever, as far as we know anyway. So the whole humanity is connected. Do you think that this time actually is something particular, something special, that we are experiencing some kind of collective awakening in our time?
And yes, we are. We are. And you know what? Like the way I mentioned to you before, I started to know about this since I was very little. When I was 5 years old, and the beings of light started to say to me, someday everyone will be able to see us.
Mm-hmm.
How they knew that? I mean, and they were showing me back in the future, and they were showing me these times of my life, like you,
Yeah,
that I was going to be around this age, all that. So it for them, that was clear this was happening,
yeah.
and this transitioning was happening, and this shift was happening. And of course, they even told me I was 19 years old when I was becoming rebellious, and I want to be like everyone else. I am tired of being different. And then it's when I asked the beings of light that there was moments I couldn't understand with things with clarity, and they said to me, in 20 years you will understand.
Okay, they mentioned a number of years actually.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes. And incredibly 20 years passed, I didn't even realize it. When I
Mm.
had my big awakening, and it's when I realized, oh, this is the time period the beings of
Yeah.
light mentioned.
Ah,
And
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
when I open up, more people open up,
Mm.
this it started to share this big
Mm.
opening started to happen. And I knew that 10, 20, 30 years ago, 50, that was not possible. You couldn't even talk about these things.
No.
You were like, what are you talking about?
I
People,
think those
very
people
few
felt very,
people.
yeah, very alone. The ones that were awakened 50 years ago felt very alone, I think.
Yeah, and that's why growing up I feel so lonely throughout my entire life, because even later when I like did more the grounding, became a scientist, all that, but I always was alone because I didn't really have anyone to share
No.
the depthness of all these teachings and all that with anyone.
Yeah.
And then when the book, I wrote it, it came out, and I said, we'll see what happened. I just let it go. And wow, the response was incredible. But I also feel this thing, Anders, and it's beautiful. When we were talking about expectation, it was the sense of the less you expect, the less you suffer.
Yes.
Because I wasn't expecting to sell, to no sell, to go, to no go, to be, to no be. Just like people say, ask me like, what do you think, what do you expect of the future? And I said nothing.
That's wise. People think you're crazy when you say that, but it's really wise. Yeah. And life is so much more interesting when you don't expect things. Imagine that you knew exactly what was going to happen. Would be incredibly boring.
It would be,
It would
oh
be
gosh.
unbearable, actually. So I think when you just realize that anything can happen tomorrow, anything can happen, it makes life so much more interesting and fascinating, and it's more joyful to live.
Yeah, and when you start actually living your life now,
yeah,
in breathing this air now, I said to people, stop. Meditation doesn't need to be like 10 hours sitting in an opposite. No. It's like, what about now, in the middle of, in the front of your computer, in the middle of the chaos, you're able to say, I exist.
Yes.
I exist.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
right
good.
now. When do we ever say that or feel that or bring that up to our acknowledgement?
Not often enough, anyway.
Exactly. So it's when we start living our present moment. Wash your dishes with presence. Wow. Touch the keyboards in your computer. Oh my God. Sense perception is here and now. Our senses are amazing. This is what connects us with the now, and we just don't even, we take it for granted. We're not even using it again, like using the true power of thinking. Touch. Oh, listen. Breathe. Grab your cup of coffee. How you want to experience it now? Grab that coffee you love and smell it before you drink it. Grab a fruit, smell it. Wow, now bite it. See?
Yeah.
Oh, that's joy.
I have to get better at that, but I know what you're talking about. It's wonderful when you can be that present. I try to do it when I eat, mostly, but sometimes I forget. Okay, Ingrid Honkala, time flies, and I'm so happy that you could share all of this with me and the listeners from Mississippi, United States, and I'm sitting here in Stockholm. Now, where can the listeners learn more about you and your work? What's the best place to go?
Yes, I have a website. It's called ingridhonkala.com. And I also have a YouTube channel, the media pages. And of course, there's my book.
Yeah.
Brightly Guided Life. It has like people, I just love it because people love it. And I always thought if this book can give a little light to someone, I already did my work.
Wonderful. So, and I guess the your website is a good place to start to find all these.
And I also do like a monthly mentoring class. It's the second Saturday of each month, and I'm about to create also a community because I do sessions, so people want to keep connected. So I'm coming with new ideas and things to keep connected. Yes.
Wonderful. Ingrid, thank you very, very much for sharing your wisdom with us here on Mind the Shift. And you're doing a beautiful and important light work.
Thank you so much for having me here. This is, again, look at the joy. This is such a joy. Yes. So please keep doing the work you're doing. It's beautiful, by sharing light, the light of awareness with the world.